Oh my God. I'm so excited. Okay, I'm dropping in. I'm locking in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Seaweed Brain, a Percy Jackson podcast. And it turns out that we lied to you. We said recently that we were wrapping up the Nico Di Angelo's Adventures podcast arc. We were wrapping up the Court of the Dead, but somehow we actually have a great surprise interview for everyone. We have Mark on the podcast. Stick around.
Yeah, Dream Team reunited.
We have Mark Oshiro here, round 2, to talk about the Court of the Dead. And we have a tradition here when we welcome illustrious authors to the podcast of reading their bios out loud. So Carter, take it away.
Mark Oshiro, they, them, is the award-winning author of the young adult books Anger is a Gift, 2019 Schneider Family Book Award, Each of Us is a Desert, and Into the Light, as well as their middle grade books, The Insiders, You Only Live Once, David Bravo, Star Wars Hunters, Battle for the Arena, and Jasmine is Haunted. They are the co-author with Rick Riordan of the #1 New York Times bestseller and #1 indie bestseller, The Sun and the Star, a Nico Di Angelo Adventure. When not writing, they are trying to pet every dog in the world.
I hope you all just applauded or snapped after that. I want everybody to know here that we have had some very special interviews in the history of this podcast. We've had intimidating interviews. We've had very lovely interviews. But our first interview with Mark was the most euphoric interview we've ever had. From Mark telling us that we were the first people to connect The Last Hope by Paramore to the final chapter of this book, to Mark quoting Florence and the Machine at us, and then telling us that they were a moderator of a Fueled by Ramen online community in a past life. All of this felt like we were hallucinating a person into existence. So all of this being said, we have a very important first question for you, Mark, which is, did you get Haley Williams tickets for the Ego Death of the Bachelorette Party tour?
I didn't. No. Not only was I not in California when they went on sale, I was like, it's not going to happen. There are two. I'm in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know how many Haley Williams? No, absolutely not. And I was like, I will
cut my losses.
I will wait until later. I've gotten very good luck here in Atlanta getting tickets at the last minute for barely. For example, the Kendrick SZA tour, the Grand National Tour, sold out in 1 second, and I got tickets the day of for $40. And they were nosebleed, and I'll see Haley Williams nosebleed. I don't care. Right. I just want to be in the building and soak up the vibe. So I gave up. I was like, I'm not even gonna try. I'm not even gonna try. I've seen Haley through Paramore.
Yes.
So many times over the years. I was also like, it's okay if someone who hasn't seen them gets to see Haley this time.
That's so sweet.
It is. Carter. I will be fighting a child to get into the building at some point. But for now, I'm going to take the moral route.
Oh my God, yeah. I saw a lot of people, like moms on TikTok posting like, guess what, honey? I got tickets to the Haley Williams concert. And I was like, I will literally push that child out of the Madison Square Garden line.
Absolutely. No way. Absolutely not.
So only Carter got tickets out of all of us.
Congrats, first of all. What a feat in and of itself.
Yeah, congratulations. What about Florence and the Machine?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
in the first second.
Too.
In the first second. I was signed up weeks in advance. Are you kidding me?
Pre-sale.
No, absolutely not.
Florence and the Machine gave me so much false hope for Haley Williams.
Maybe in multiple cities.
Oh wow!
Oh, yes!
Everyone knows I love Miss Florence Welch. But I think this is the first time in a while that I'm like, I might actually want to go to multiple. So I'll let you know where the other places are.
My sister was trying. I got tickets for Madison Square Garden, but my sister was trying to convince me to also go in like Scotland at some of the outdoor venues.
Oh God, I would. I don't even know. I can't even think about that. That would kill me.
It's going to be it's going to be a really good. It's going to be a really good tour. Okay. Anyway, we'll talk about Nico Di Angelo now. We have assigned ourselves questions. So Carter, take it away.
Can we start with something else?
Yeah.
Which is, and I may be just completely blowing your plan for a question later.
No worries.
But you realize the first interview, and remind me, we did the first interview in the summer of 2023?
That sounds right.
I think so. Yeah,
fall.
Like August, September-ish, something like that. Yeah.
We had finished the book. Yeah.
what's more important is that you both had questions and we had a long discussion about monstrosity. And I need you to yes! I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but I want to talk about the prescience of you picking up on that. And I could not say that whole interview how right you were because we had already started developing Court of the Dead. And so all of that conversation was me not only trying to genuinely answer the question and talk about this, which monstrosity and queerness is really important, but sitting there going like, I have to gaslight them so bad. I have to gaslight. I can't. I hate this. I don't like this at all because I was like, I know something you don't know. And now we all know.
And now we, yeah.
Oh, God. Anyway.
No.
Exploding at the sea. I couldn't say anything to you in person either. When I saw you, I couldn't. Sorry. All right. I'm fine.
No.
I'm fine.
Mark, you have to, I was gonna say, and I was gonna tell you, like, I actually might have mentioned this to you, but we, right before picking up this book and starting this book, had finished our Odyssey summer series. So we were doing Odyssey adaptations. And then at the end of that, to celebrate it, we did an entire episode that we just called Woke-dissy Pitches, where we were taking different monsters and characters from the Odyssey. And because we had read Circe by Madeline Miller, we were like, how would we take these characters?
One of the greatest novels of all time. By the way.
Well, yes.
All time.
Well, yes. We were like, how could you write, like a new novel and take on some of these characters? And it was just us going down the list and being like, well, they're gay. So we're like, what, Scylla and Charybdis, sapphic yearning story, Polyphemus, but he's gay. And then we picked, and then like after recording and editing and posting that, we picked up this book and we were like, oh, so it's the Minotaur, but he's gay.
Amidst many other things, but yes.
Amidst many things, many themes. But, we felt so vindicated. It was actually nuts. Like, I was like, I don't even know, like, I was like 8 chapters in when I saw you and Rick, and I was like, Carter, I don't even know how to look at them and be like, we exist on the same plane. We exist in the same universe.
And and what a great way to start this off too. Here is yet another thing that has been blowing everyone's mind. Like, the idea for Court of the Dead is mine, but like the plot is mine. The original idea is Rick, though, of like, let's make Asterion, we'll call him Asterion, like actually call him by his name and make it very important that you say his name. But also, let's make him a caring, almost domestic knitter who has this whole side to him that he discovered through great, horrifying trauma. Which I'm like sitting there and I'm like, gay. Like, what are you kidding me? How did you do this again? Why do I keep having these moments where I'm like, do you need me, Rick Riordan? I don't. What the hell? Like, how did you come up with? And he, again, just a joke, a little riff on his head and stage while we were on tour for Sun and the Star. He said, and I would make the joke on tour for this tour multiple times, but I'm like, I thought about it every day for a month. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Because it's so yes, it's a joke. What if he knits his own tidy whities? But the more you think about it, I just unraveled and I was like, oh, the idea of here is one of the most horrifying monsters in the whole series who we never hear speak, deliberately never hear speak, and who only exists as an antagonistic force. And we get this great heroic moment with Percy at the end of the first series with him, and then he's just gone.
Mm-hmm.
But is he gone? Are monsters really gone in the Percy Jackson universe? So what happens if years pass and no one calls on the Minotaur to do evil? What do? You take up knitting. Because the thread in the maze, it's like, it was right fucking, it's sorry. Okay.
It was right there. The thread.
It's right there.
The thread in the, you know what? I'm sorry, I didn't connect the fact that the thread in the maze and the myth is how we got to knitting. That makes perfect sense, obviously.
His mind, I swear to God.
Carter, didn't you had something you wanted to expound upon that, right? Like how we got from knitting to mythic, like, refugees?
Yeah.
I don't know how much more to say beyond that. So
sorry, I just said it for you.
The Minotaur, and then how do we build out the rest of the, I guess, elements of this recontextualization from like the mythics as a term, as like a self-identification, to the crew that we ended up getting?
It came from how I brainstorm. And, Rick had said before Sun and the Star came out, if we get to do this again, it's your turn. I want you to come up with the idea. I came up with the idea for Sun and the Star. I had this outline. I want to see what your brain comes up with. And he made that joke. I want to say it was in maybe New York, maybe it was in Atlanta. We were just doing the sound check. And the person doing sound check was like, keep talking. And he was just like, okay, well. And he was talking about the show, I believe. If my memory serves, he was talking about the show. And in particular, he had an argument about like, he has to be in tidy whities. Like, we can't take that detail out of the show. And then he paused for a moment and he's like, where does he get them? And I'm like, what? And he's like, where does he get the tidy whities? I'm like, what? He's like, does he go to Walmart and just gets like a really big size? Or do you think he knits them himself? And I'm just looking at him like what?
Rick, you wrote this.
Well, not only do you wrote it, but like, what is happening in your mind right now? And it was just this funny thing. And we went back and forth and he's like, yeah, I just really like the idea that what he took up after the maze was knitting. We have the thread. It's, like and then he just goes on with his, that's Rick. Rick will say something to me that's so profound, either very funny, very serious, very genuine. And then we'll just sort of like wander off. And I'm like, what the hell, man? What are you doing? Like, what? And so I'm not kidding you. Every day for like a month, I couldn't stop thinking of that. I remember getting an email from my agent about a week after the book hit the list that was like, hey, do you want to do another one? Disney's already like, hey, this is way more successful than we thought. And I was like, yeah, duh, of course. And so as I was thinking about this idea of where the Minotaur could show up again and what it meant for him to be into knitting, and he knits his own clothing, and does he knit clothing for other people? I remember the conversation Rick and I had about why Hazel was not a presence in the first book, which was she can't be a cameo. We can have cameos to some extent. I liked the depth that we gave Piper's appearance, but one chapter is not enough for his half sibling. It just felt almost, I'm going to use the word disrespectful, because I think something that I think about a lot in engaging with canon is I don't want to ever engage with the canon that Rick has created disrespectfully. And the idea that his half sibling only gets a chapter, I was like, I don't like that. I don't like how that feels. I feel like this is a huge thing in his life, especially because he has lost his sister. So here's another sister. She can't just be this little blip of a moment.
Yeah.
So we had said, if we do another one of these, let's explore a deeper relationship with Hazel. So then it was, okay, I know the Minotaur has to be in it. I know Hazel has to be in it. I know Will and Nico have to be in it. Here's this beautiful square. What do they have in common? And I went back that month, late. It would have been late May, early June of 2023, and reread a lot of Hazel's introduction and her backstory. And a thing kept popping up, which is how deeply aware Hazel was of being judged by her peers for her skin color, for her race, for her abilities. And I just kept being like, oh, Nico hates being judged a lot. Will hates being judged a lot. The Minotaur is obviously, if we ever bring the Minotaur back, he's going to be judged immediately because he tried to kill Percy Jackson, like the titular character.
Twice.
So if the thematic central, element of these four characters is a dislike of being judged and being seen as something that you are not, what sort of story can develop from that? And I just was like, oh, it just popped in my head one morning, like on a run. I was just like, oh, the Minotaur shows up at Camp Jupiter. We haven't done an adventure. And it just was like one piece sort of fell into another. And I'm like, well, okay, what's the most interesting thing that could happen if the Minotaur shows up is instead of being this antagonistic force, he immediately asks for help. I'm like, okay, well, what does he ask for help for? And so that's how I brainstormed, is just asking one question after another. And then I was like, oh, you know what I love? A ragtag band of weirdos. Yeah. What if there's a ragtag band of weirdos who come along with Asterion? And what if that has happened when Hazel, through an Iris message, says, hey, Nico, hey, Will, hi, friends, love you down bad.
Yeah.
Need some help. What's wrong? I don't know how to explain this. Come here now, And so it started from that place, and immediately recognizing the tension that came. So when I saw Rick late in June for the ALA, we were backstage, and I was like, "Yo, I haven't stopped thinking about the Minotaur's tidy whities for a month. Hear me out." And then that's literally, it was like hear me out. What if Asterion, the Minotaur, we name him Asterion, and he goes by his real name, shows up at Camp Jupiter and says, "Hey, we heard demigods maybe aren't who we thought they were. We heard these stories of these two demigods who literally went to Tartarus, rescued a Titan, and offered grace and understanding to countless beings across this journey. I know how to get to you. I know where this is. Can you help me?" And so at that point in June, the idea was they show up, they cause a lot of chaos, mostly because no one knows how to deal with them.
Yeah.
You are looking at creatures who you have been taught your whole life are the enemy, and that you have to fight to protect demigods and also humans, because humans can suffer the ill effects of any sort of creature that comes from this mythological realm. And then why not call the experts of chaos, Nico and Will, who have now irrevocably changed the sort of fabric of the world. And then there was only one other thing, which is, and then I don't know why that zoomed in. So close.
So dramatic.
There's a lot of very
so dramatic
camera movement
You
on
said,
you.
and then there was one other thing.
Yeah, I forgot. I got this new camera. Hold on, let me move my little thing. And I forgot it has a thing where it can read hand gestures. I think it's like this, because I did this.
Oh.
Go back out. Autofocus. I don't want autofocus mode.
Wait, if I had that feature on my computer, I would be DPing myself like all day long.
There we go. That was amazing. The timing of that was impeccable.
Wow.
Impeccable.
Yeah. Chills.
I do not want. Okay, I had hand tracking on. That's why. Let me keep my hand. I'm gay. I talk with my hands. I can't help it.
Hand tracking is homophobic feature.
Oh, homophobic. Except it's not, because why? That was so dramatic
no,
and wonderful.
awesome.
But anyway, the only other bit I had at that point is, and then people start disappearing. I think that was it. And Rick was like, "Yes, that's very interesting. Come back to me with an outline." And I had a full outline a month later. It's all I did that summer. I did that summer. Well, by the way, doing school visits, appearances, and maybe a podcast or two, fully lying about like there's no second book. I don't know anything about the themes of queerness and monstrosity, except that are in the sun. The whole time, that's all I was thinking about was this idea of what is the storytelling and mythology of the world, and why are we told that? And I loved trying to thread this with Rick. And I will say that this was the most like wildly more edited book than the first one in terms of how much it changed, because we were both trying to figure out that delicate line of, but it makes sense that the demigod campers would react the way that they did because they've been trained their whole lives this way. But it also makes sense that here are these creatures who've not only been rejected by their own kind, but now don't fit in the world. And it also makes sense that they would be thorny. Like, I love writing
Ariel
them being jerks, like, and understandable jerks. Ariel and Samil, and like very much being like, I exist for me and my friends and my community, and I'm sorry that reads the way that it does, but it needs to read this way for reasons. But
mean lesbians.
Yeah, yeah, hell yeah, like 100%. 100%, because I think this is also an I would say a manifestation of now my writing career and where I'm at now, which is I'm just less and less interested in writing likable characters. I don't care if you like the character at all. But are they? And here's the thing, and I'm gonna. This is from my editor of my YA books, Miriam Weinberg, on the edit letter for my very first book, Anger's a Gift. She said something that has stuck with me, and I think about for every book is, I want these characters to be legible, not likable. Do they make sense? Can you understand who they are, even if you don't like what they're doing? And this was for Rick and I, so much of our edits were trying to find that fine path between the two. And yeah, so I mean that's the full sort of origin story of where this came from.
Yeah. That's really, especially this legible thing is really interesting to hear because we have spoken a lot towards the end of our coverage of this book about how unlikable the Camp Jupiter kids could be and how far into this like prejudice they would be able to fall in this book. Like
Yeah.
like the need to have Perithous as this manifestation kind of villain of the prejudice and it not just being about the Camp Half-Blood, the Camp
By
Jupiter
the way,
kids.
nailed the pronunciation of that. Do you know how I hated spelling
It's
that name.
I've had to edit us going out of so many episodes.
Perithous. It's so hard to say. I spelled it wrong every single time.
Yeah.
He was.
I cannot spell it.
I'm pretty sure he was my idea too. Like I chose this. That's the thing. I can't even say, Rick, you came up with this deep cut. No, that was me. I did.
Wait, yes,
because there was a moment at the beginning where Perthous' best friend was the obvious one.
Theseus.
Yeah, which I thought that was who the villain was going to be, but then it didn't make sense, especially with how he was mentioned in the earlier books. I was like, we can subvert one existing character, Asterion, and sort of flip his meaning. But I was like, and this, Rick never got this part. Like, this was when I was brainstorming. I was like, ooh, it'd be interesting if the villain was Theseus. But then I was like, oh, that unlocks a whole bunch of stuff that I don't know that this, I think the book would be distracted by trying to make Theseus the villain. So I was like, it's so much more interesting if it's his friend that people are like, and who are you? What is that? Oh, we know your best friend. Oh, but who are you again? Like that, that to me added a level that was so much funnier. But also that idea of like, you're not the main star, you're the person next to. And like and I was like, that's so right for developing that complex that he has.
Yeah. I'm also so intrigued by the fact that you outlined this book because I remember you told us that Rick had come to you with the outline for The Sun and the Star, and I believe was like, here are certain points where you're going to cover this part, or like, I want to hear what you have to say on this part. So were there points for you in this outline where you were like, Rick, I want you to do this part. Like, I want to hear what you think about this section or this character.
No, actually no. But what happened was when I gave him the outline, he then just, I didn't know this was going to happen. If I remember correctly, I don't remember that it was going to happen. It just came back edited. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. No, these are great ideas. Like, and part of it was just like, well, for canon reasons, I think maybe we should go here, or for canon reasons, I think this should happen. But the majority of his sort of contribution and changes came from draft 1 to draft 2, in which, if I had to guess, he changed 75% of the book. So much of the book, to the point it took me a full week to just read it line by line and be like, this is not what I turned in. Oh, this is so fascinating. And then I would take notes. And so, I mean, I didn't have like a physical version. I almost wish I did, so I could do the sticky note thing like I did with the series when I was, doing the audition. But there were so many fascinating things that he's like, he just fully changed entire scenes, added characters, took out. It was so fascinating. I felt like I got an even bigger education into how his mind works for storytelling. But no, when I write, I think what I remembered especially was the sense of dread and terror I felt when I would get to a part in that line that was like, oh, well, we could just fill in the gaps later. So this time I was like, I don't want to do that to you. So I filled in all the gaps, and it was a very, very detailed outline.
Mm-hmm.
He did change quite a few significant parts, but the biggest changes came from draft 1 to draft 2.
Yeah.
But no, when I tell you I was unhinged coming up with this outline, and a lot of it was, again, that mentality of, if I never get to do this again, I want to write my weird, queer, refugee, what's the word I'm thinking of? It was sort of also, if I'm being honest, a little prison abolition 101 about rethinking justice and crime, and also what happens when someone is a legitimate victim of a crime and actually has fear and trauma and loss associated with it. How do you honor that person's hurt and that they were a victim of a crime while also not literally demonizing and so I was just like, all right, I'm going to throw all of this at this book and have faith not only in Rick's creative abilities, but also the editing process with Stephanie Lurie of we will get through this. But right now I'm throwing everything at this book and I'm going to write this. And I remember getting the pitch back and being like, oh, none of the thematic stuff changed. Okay. I guess they're okay with this. And then getting that second draft back from Rick and being like, oh, he dialed everything up to 11. Like way more than I thought we would be dialing it the other way. No, we went way further. And I was like, yeah, he dialed everything way, way more up. And I think, and from our conversations, especially in that editing process, a lot of it was, he was just so excited to be like, oh, this is complicated. This is new. And I got my sense of the second and the fourth draft, which were the ones he did, was we keep calling this book unhinged because that's what it felt like. It just felt so, I could read his words. I'm like, oh, he's excited. This is exciting to him to do something different. And it just, yeah, I hope it came across in the writing, especially the last 100 pages.
The phrase prison reform book has literally came up for us in our past 2 episodes covering the last 100 pages. Yeah. We were also like the third book, we're also going to have to ask you about like the, potential third book threads. Cause we were talking,
which I don't have to be a secret about. Thank God that he turned to me during that Cosmo interview and was like, Mark, talk about a third book. And I was sitting there like, am I allowed? Is there like Disney sitting outside my building and this is a test? What do you mean? Like,
yeah.
All right. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. But yeah, one of the pitches we had was prison reform book, like prison reform book down, where Nico goes into the underworld and like works with Asterion to like reform the practices of Tartarus.
That's
and,
not what the third book is, but that's a good idea.
That was one of the
yeah, that's a good idea.
But on that note about all of the different themes and like throwing everything, we were really curious about the structure and like the idea of Rick hopefully being excited about writing something new. Like we felt structurally like this book was so refreshingly like veering away from the traditional quest structure. Carter, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, we were trying to like pin down like if there was like a genre frame that felt most useful. We talked a lot about the mystery idea. We also initially were like, are they going to spend this whole book like going to coffee shops and like having sort of like heart-to-heart chats with people who are working through some personal issues, and that's going to be the structure of the book,
which we've been pitching as an idea for years now. We're like, just have them go to brunch for like an entire book.
Girls go to brunch and like talk through what happened to them. The book is the feeling. But yeah, like how did you think through like, I guess, that marriage of structure and of ideas and figuring out how to write something that is working with all these different ideas and also like not a quest?
Yeah. It was a very deliberate conversation once we realized that a quest didn't make sense. And I think what is still so fun and so creatively exciting about the Nico Di Angelo books in particular is because the audience is Nico Di Angelo fans, we both feel very, and like which is not to say that fans of other characters are necessarily beholden to certain means, structures, types of stories. In general, I think Percy Jackson fans have accepted that the series is always going to wildly veer. Like, I think structurally, you could argue like the first series and the second series are kind of similar structurally in that it's like a group of people uniting over a common quest. And then you get to the Trials of Apollo and he just kicks you off a cliff with a first person adult narrative in a middle grade book. Yes, Lester's 16 years. That's an adult. That is an adult main character. And I remember when I first read the books in 2018, getting to the Trials of Apollo, reading one chapter, being so furious, this doesn't work. Why would you do this? This is a horrible idea for me. And then by chapter 5, I was like, I will murder for Lester. When does that happen? When can I be on the quest? And so what has sort of been our guiding light with these books is here is the one place where we can maybe do something different.
Yeah.
We knew, and we talked about this either in person or through like, we knew there was no way The Sun and the Star could ever feel like any of the 15 prior Percy Jackson books. One, because it's co-written. And so like the bones of it, as we talk about, we're going to feel different. But also, it is something I'm very sort of aware of is Nico has a very specific place in the canon. He has a specific voice. The second you have a character who has had sporadic points of view and then is the main character, it's really hard to maintain the same sense of mystery. Because before you would get his thoughts, there is some interiority to Nico, but it's split up with 6 other characters. And now you're in a book where there's one, Will is the only other person in The Sun and the Star who gets a perspective. And so you spend so much more time that we knew on some level the sort of mystery of Nico isn't going to be a mystery anymore. And I don't mean that just with his own lore. Like, yes, we do learn flashbacks, like the whole descent into Tartarus the first time. But it also means that because you're spending more time with the character, you're going to lose some of that mystique of what are they hiding? What are they keeping away? The Sun and the Star was our chance to say, well, I was going to use this metaphor, and I actually just I was going to say the closet is wide open, and it kind of is like it's open, and we are now going to go in and actually see what are all his demons, what are all the things that he's keeping to himself, what are these thoughts, these intrusive thoughts, these happy thoughts. I think a lot of people were thrown off by how many times Nico had a happy thought, and one that was because he's also with Will, who allows him to express those things and gently bullies him for it, but it's a loving bullying.
Yeah.
And so coming into this book, it was, well, we don't want to ignore what we did with Sun and the Star with Nico. We knew also, and I will say this as a potential hint for the third book, if we're going to add Hazel, unfortunately, that means we can't have as much Will, because you can't have the same amount and then add a third character and they have the same amount. It was that complicated math of, okay, we know we're not going to have Will point of view. That does mean someone may have a lot of point of view in the third book. A lot. In particular because of, oh God, I had this conversation. Did you see my Will conversations on Twitter a few months ago?
I don't think so.
Someone asked a very astute question about Will, and there's a moment when he's holding on to grief and it makes him angry. And they were like, Mark, what were you thinking? And I went into oh, baby, I thought about this for hours. And went into this whole thing about his rage over losing campers. And that is there also as a thread we might be pulling. But yes.
Yes.
There is a complicated balance of figuring out what works as a structure, who's going to get time, but how are we allowed to be super spoilery here?
100%. Yes.
Okay, because I want you to know.
Put a tag at the beginning where I think the intention of this is everyone's read the book.
And all of Trials of Apollo and everything into eternity. Yeah.
The big one was one sort of keystone of the structure was the fake out. And then this is where Hazel's point of view comes in. I was the one who said, I love this you kind of hit it on the head, Carter, which is, this is a mystery plot. And thinking of it as a mystery that is a quest that they willingly take up, as opposed to a quest that is assigned to them.
Yes.
And the reason they willingly take it up is because there is a moral center to this quest that we really wanted to tap into this idea that Will and Nico see an injustice that Hazel has already recognized, and they will do and treat this like a quest because it is on the same level as a quest to them. Being assigned a quest, obviously, as a demigod is you have to do this. This is very important. And they saw this deep wrong happening and said, well, we're going to treat it the same level. So you get those little bit of vibes where they're almost on a quest, but they're not. They're not on a quest. But yeah, thinking of it as a mystery structure and having basically a trapdoor in the structure. And the trapdoor was the big moment in court where for at least one chapter, you think Rick and I have done the worst thing ever. But it was important that one, it only lasts a chapter. I didn't want actual upset and grief. We were not thinking we actually want to destroy everyone, but then using that as an example, using that as the pivot moment in which we could have branching plot lines and we could get into Hazel's point of view much more deeply.
Yes.
And so it came from that place. And that is, yes, not a structure that has happened in a Percy Jackson book. I mean, I've talked to both of you about this too. I'm very fascinated by structure and I rethink it all the time. I love thinking of a bird's eye view. So for me, this was like the letter Y. Like it was these two characters are this, and then they branch off like this. And then the thing for me was, when do they loop back around and connect once again? And so keeping that mystery, making it almost like a whodunit in some ways. And then when the two, plot lines converge, it was, how can we make this the most chaotic final scene imaginable?
Yes.
Because of what it's about, and the mythological implications of the mist, and again toying with perception, because the whole book is about perception, right? The whole book is about, we perceive mythics. We'll call them mythics, as that's what, we perceive mythics this one way. So what if the villain is literally shattering perception even for humanity?
Yes.
And saying that you are not actually seeing reality either. And so if that's the case and we shatter perception, what happens? Cats. Will in a banana suit. What?
Will in a banana suit. I don't know any bananas. That was my favorite line in the entire book. Oh God, it was so good.
I can't say I wrote that. I don't remember who wrote that line. I want to say most of the good jokes were Rick in this one, actually.
I buy it being either of you.
Yeah, I don't remember.
We loved, from a structural standpoint, when everything converges and we're in the chaos of the final chapters and we have the alternating POV like every paragraph. We loved that, like the way that like added to the chaos and it like sped up the pacing.
Thank you.
Like that, we were so satisfied by that.
And I think I'll say that's from me. I did it in Into the Light, and it had so much fun doing it for a very different reason. But that was something I think of. That's something I'm borrowing from cinema. And when I'm thinking of those fast cuts during so sometimes I think very visually. And so I'm thinking, what would feel exciting, but also disorienting to a reader, is we're not doing the like fast cuts chapter to chapter. It's now we're in the scene. You are jumping from one to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other. The idea there was to create that sense of confusion. And then Rick's contribution was actually to just tighten it up and actually make the cuts quicker, which I love. So the scenes used to be longer, and he kind of spliced them up. And I was like, oh, that's so smart. Oh, that's so smart. I wouldn't have thought of it that way. So like, that's sort of how that came to be.
Yes, it was. It was so satisfying to read. And I think now is the perfect time to talk about the mist. We have like just for weeks now been like, the mist is a metaphor. The mist is a metaphor. What metaphor? We've been asking our guests. We've been like, and how does the mist track for you? Like, what's the metaphor of the mist for you? What does it mean for you? We've had guests come on and talk about like magical realism, and obviously we've talked a lot about empathy. And please speak on all of the things that the mist does in this book.
I can't help but have this like giant well that I draw from that is magical realism. It is in so many of my books. Let me just say this. It's not just magical realism. I've gotten a chance, unfortunately because he passed, but to talk about the huge influence that David Lynch has had on my life. And I think The Mist is in every David Lynch film, like in terms of the metaphor and the representation of the strange, the weird. In particular, I love to write from a place where I, as an author, as much as possible, am not holding the hand of the reader. And that's something that I learned from David Lynch, which is to just go on the ride and to go on the journey and to see something for what it is. And what does this moment make you feel? And so I loved, and we talked about it a bit, of on its face, the mist in this book is perception. So the mist generally in the past has protected humanity from seeing this mythological world. It also helps the demigods. So what if this, again, something that has helped demigods navigate the world and navigate their sense of morality, what if it breaks? And when Asterion and his friends show up, immediately every demigod has to have that moment of, what? I mean, even in the very first meeting, it's deliberately written that way. When Asterion rises up, he's meant to be terrifying. And then immediately, as soon as we go to the next chapter, everything that happens is Nico and Will being like, this is weirder than Tartarus. Like, this is weirder than Carl and Bartholomew. This is weirder than anything. What? But it's that moment of, well, now I have to shift my perspective. Everything I knew is not what I once thought it was. And I was also thinking of that initial moment when the demigods are introduced to their world. And the mist becomes obvious to them when it wasn't when they were very, very young. And so it's growth. It's these characters coming into their own, but accepting the world is more complicated. And so then having the mist be a weapon of a villain, but especially having that be the weapon of a villain in a book with Hazel. I was like, it has to be Hazel. And that is the tie to it is because Hazel is a character who has a deep connection to the mist. So I loved this idea once again. One of my sort of favorite tropes is a villain who underestimates the hero, because so much of I hate pronouncing his name. Why did I do this? Pertharus.
The big
So much of his sort of interaction in the way that he goads and teases Hazel is about her being trapped and her being like because he is a judge of the dead and he is this person who judges people for how they have or have not changed. He thinks he has her figured out. And there's a moment or quite a few where she almost believes him. And so much of her self-worth is tied up in like, what did I do when I was younger? How did I make the world worse? Did I actually help anyone? And more so than almost any character in the series, I feel like Hazel I mean this very affectionately, takes everything personally. Understandably takes things personally. So I love having a character who is, and this is a little bit of me being injected. I'm a very sensitive person. I grew up as the sensitive kid who took everything personally and think everyone is out to get me and that no one,
What's your sign, Mark?
We don't have to talk about that. That's fine. That's fine. It was using that and then almost making it her superpower, which is her ability to empathize, her ability to see people for their full humanity or their full mythic manity, if you will, like to see all of a person for who they are and to accept that they are complicated or whatnot. And that ends up being her strength. And so her taking the mist, reusing it in the ways that she does. I love this opportunity to sort of grow how much power she had. I love when a character suddenly gets, we had like Will's Care Bear stare, in Sun and the Star. And I really love the opportunity to have this thematic element tied to Hazel's growth. So that was sort of where, on the face of it, that's what I was thinking about. Yeah. I have loved seeing everyone else's interpretations about the mist is ignorance or the mist is like accepting a comfortable narrative over an uncomfortable one, which I don't think is a wrong interpretation. Was it what I was consciously thinking about when I made the initial outline? Maybe, I don't know, but I think it's this book more than any other. What has been happening in the world just came through in Rick and I's writing because it's what we're thinking about and thinking about those themes of justice and unfairness.
Yeah.
And we had conversations about like, this feels more so than any Percy Jackson book, like the biggest, I don't want to paint it as so simplistic, but like the very obvious social commentary happening here.
Yeah.
It's as subtle as a brick. Let's be honest.
There were times when we were like, "There's no escapism." We're just like "Oh God!"
And
like,
by the way, that's a risk in a fantasy series. Like I love fantasy. I love horror. I love speculative fiction because it has an escapist element, but the stories I love the most have a foot in our world. They do, and it's a way to deal with it. I think we knew very early on, this one has a foot in the world, and we can't deny it. So we're just going to lean into it. And we know that it's the risk with any storytelling. The Sun and the Star was risky for demystifying Nico in some way. I think that was the big risk. And the big risk here is this book is very much set in our world in a way that I think the other ones maybe aren't. And again, I remember turning in that first draft and being like, well, this book will be removed from this world. And instead, Rick just stepped even deeper into it.
Yeah.
And it made the process, because once that happened, it was like permission. It was like, let's go. And we both just dialed it in, and not dialed in, and we just locked in
Yes.
together. We were so insane. It took us 2 entirely less drafts this time around. We were done by draft 4. We were like, no, this is it. This is the book that we want. Whereas it took 6 drafts for The Sun and the Star. I think part of it came from just us being more comfortable with each other. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Part of, I think, although there is that relationship between it being in the real world and like what is escapism stuff, it was so satisfying and like rewarding to read when Savannah like comes around, you know, because we were like, wow, that is the best, most rewarding fantasy I could possibly think of, is like a young person who has a certain perspective coming to change their mind and like grow into a better person. Like I would love to see that, you know. And it was really nice to read and be like, oh, this is possible. Like, especially if, you know, for people who are young, are surrounded by elder demigods and mentors, to be able to present them with different perspectives was really nice to read.
I will say Savannah is based on a friend of mine who has no real like physical similarities or even necessarily the story, but it is someone that I knew in my early 20s when I first started getting involved in activism, whose family was the victim of a like horrible, horrible crime. And a lot of where I was sort of thematically pulling from was in the months after this crime happened, and getting sort of a front row view to how someone not only deals with the grief of it, but their anger. And so much of what I watched my friends struggle with was, I have an anger that can't or doesn't have a resolution, and them constantly struggling with, oh, here's an easy outlet for it, but I don't want to take it. And so with Savannah, it was coming up with these moments in which she was like, both as a young person, but also a young person who's gone through some immense trauma. What happens if she does give into that moment? What does that look like? How does that feel for both parties? How do we also write about this compassionately so that we're not disrespecting what Savannah's gone through, but also, you know, not disrespecting what Ariel's going through? And oh, again, a very tight balance, and having to think of it. And again, so much of writing is genuinely putting yourself in the shoes of someone else and trying to imagine what this feels like. And so I had this particular memory in this well, and then my own, I had a very interesting experience when I was in my 20s. I'd say interesting. It was terrifying. I got mugged when I was like in my early 20s, and all my rent money got stolen. I was on the way to like to get a check for rent. It was a very violent experience, and so much of my feelings afterward were bound up in this feeling of, these people will get away with it forever. Like they'll never have to be held accountable for it. And a lot of what I've done in therapy, but then also with the activist groups who I got involved with in my early 20s, was like, not only figuring out how to have an outlet for that, but how to have a way that respected what I went through and to respect my own feelings. But then also, what is the outlet for me, and how do I deal with these feelings of literal violation, both physical violation, but then also the financial violation of like, it set me into a tailspin for a few months, because like when you're 20 and someone steals $1,300 from you, girl, where are you getting that from? Like, I'm not rich. Like, I was very poor. And here's the part that made it even more complicated. I had 2 other roommates, so it was their money too. So all 3 of us got wrapped in this, like, and you know, it eventually solved itself. We all made our money or borrowed it from other people. But like, there was this period of, these people did this act, and it affected all of our lives in ways that they'll never even know. And that part is kind of what ate up at me. And so I was thinking of that with Savannah, of that thing of, you won't even know what you did. But then that's actually the answer that comes towards the end is, well, wait, what are the things that you can do to maybe get some closure? Is there a way that we can find these people? And it doesn't mean we have to find them and then, you know,
do
send them
extreme
to Tartarus.
prejudice.
Like, exactly. Or whatnot. But what is that journey? And so much of Savannah and Ariel, and as well as the other demigods around them too, is like, well, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with this complicated reality? And again, in a way that is compassionate and respectful, especially when it's hard. Because that's the most difficult part, is when it's hard, how do you still be compassionate and respectful And for me, that's like the difficult journey, and again, the difficult thread that Rick and I were trying to figure out with these characters is how do we do this? And again, in a world where they've always been monsters the whole time, like
The
they've always
whole
been
time.
monsters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's so interesting that I feel like we were wondering so specifically about Savannah,
Yeah.
and we wanted to ask about her. So that's makes a lot of sense.
I love her. I love
Yeah.
everyone in this. I love all these characters. I love the mythics too. My babies.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite? That was a question people wanted us to ask you. Do you have a personal favorite mythic? We have favorites.
Okay, I think my favorite to write, especially because she was the hardest, was Samil. She was in the original outline, and that whole plot and what happens in the end was always there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was finding that middle place between mysterious and thorny, but then introducing the hint of her sort of mothering, nurturing nature. But the thing is it had to reveal it so slowly because she had been so separated from her physical self, and this idea that she was the essence of who she was, and there was so much vengeance and sadness in her. And she became, and I will say a lot of that, shout out to Becky Reardon once again. That was Becky's biggest influence, was on Samil, and having conversations. I remember getting in. I'm pretty sure it was an email from Becky that was like, "We don't want Samil to be like the old crone stereotype, and this idea that she's this distant." And I was like, "Yeah, agreed. That's not, and especially where she ends up, that can't be where she was." So then it was, all right. One, let's introduce some humor, which was her forgetting that she was incorporeal and she would just show up in front of people's faces. Like that was very funny. So I was like, okay, the classic humor of like, we can find humor in this weirdness. But then I wanted to make sure that she was fiercely defensive of these people around her and that they clearly looked up to her on some capacity. And then especially when Asterion disappears, it's like, oh, default, obviously she's in charge of all of this. But then that moment, I love the thing where she's like, wait, let's just listen. I believe it's with Hazel. Like, let's just listen to this theory. Yes, you want to use this as bait. I'm a little intrigued. Let's just talk. And just having that moment where just for really no smart reason, like she should just take her and all her friends and leave because they're under threat. But she just decides in this moment, you know what? This young girl has given us grace, understanding, safety, and has tried. I'm just going to, just for this moment, put aside my own very understandable fears and issues and just listen. And then that is really the key in which she begins to develop a much deeper respect and understanding of these people and brings her to her journey. So I love her a lot. I love oh God,
Orcus.
I do love Orcus. The Bleme, I don't know how to pronounce any
quinoa.
of this. No, quinoa is the grain. Is it Johan?
Oh, Johan.
Yeah.
The Bleme, yes.
Particularly it is played for comedy a lot of time, but also the thing of like, I have to be polite all the time, and then showing that there are moments when being polite is not actually advantageous, particularly how he gets tricked. And like having that thing of this character struggling with, I have to be polite all the time. And then like, oh God, that was so satisfying and fun to write. So I will say there's very few things in this book I may have come up with like the idea and the plot, but like so much of it changed. But each of the mythics I actually came up with, did the research of which creatures I was going to bring in, and then what were the ways that led them to being part of this group. Is it Orcus who doesn't want children? It's Orcus who doesn't want children, but like wants to run the kindergarten, which that is Rick's joke. That joke made me laugh 700 years. I'm still laughing about him thinking it's kindergarten, not kindergarten. Yeah.
I'm still laughing at him wanting the children to cultivate the patch of Tartarus skin like a garden. That the idea of that imagery burned into my mind forever.
That's Rick. That's not me at all. That's Rick. It was so good. I remember. I think that might have been the one biggest moment that I read that I was like, oh, go to hell. That's so good. How did I not think of that? Like, oh, it's so good.
Patrick
But so
Charteriskin.
smart. And it's such a like, oh, of course. Like, but yeah, the one I feel most sort of love and affection for is Samil. And then especially where she ends up, like, God, what a moment. Which is fun that people who started reading it on the day it came out, who know mythology, were like, isn't that so-and-so's mom? And I just would just smile, smiley face. Thanks for reading. Keep reading.
Okay, I think that it's time for us to ask you like our series of much smaller, sillier questions.
Okay. I mean, I have time. You can ask more of the longer
Okay,
ones.
amazing. Well, I'm sure that some of these will end up being longer. You know what? Let's just start with, we already talked about Savannah. Let's talk about Frank. Carter and I have always been like, I don't know what
suspicious,
the word is.
I think, is the word.
Truthers. Suspicious Frank people. And so we felt like once again, I think the word is vindicated by opening this book and being like, well, yes, Frank would be acting like this. This is Frank. Like, he is so camp Jupiter pilled. He is so like rigid in his mind. Of course, this would be his response to this. Like, we were right about Frank all along. This is his personality.
Yeah.
He's so at odds with Hazel in so many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. And then the thing that unlocked it for me in a conversation with Rick is he is like, isn't it ironic that a shapeshifter can't change it? And I was like, like, because the thing is, it is that struggle of a person. Yes, their personality is ripe for this sort of exploration of someone who really is struggling with, this is what I was taught. I like you call it Camp Jupiter pill. Like, he is so into the culture of Camp Jupiter and how it's run. And then here comes Hazel with this decision that just throws all of it in its face and is just so confusing. And the thing is, let's also explore it through a character who we know is good, who is a fantastic person I want to explore complicated ideas through these characters, because I think it does sometimes make it easier to explore them. But there's also that particular creative fun of when a character should understand something but doesn't. So why is that? Why is it that someone like Frank, who is an outsider to himself, his family, to other demigods, like, because of his ability, that's someone who should fully understand not fitting in, feeling like an outcast, going to other people for help, to find community, to find, support and friendship or whatnot. So then the question becomes, then what is overriding that? So for him, it is structure. He is in love with the structure of Camp Jupiter. And I don't think there's ever a moment that we necessarily say in Neon Lights, Frank loves structure. Frank loves structure, though, in the way that he runs things, even the way he taunts Will about, like, you can't handle Camp Jupiter.
Yeah.
It's because he does see value in the structure of how they train. I want you to know 90% of the reason I wrote that in the outline was specifically because I had this idea. I want you to know where it came from, which is in around the time The Sun and the Star came out, is when I had like a particularly gnarly health scare, and my doctor was like, hey, what's a form of cardio you actually like? And I was like, running. And they're like, cool, make it your whole personality. Here we are 2 years later, and it is. But I was on a run once, and I thought, I just want to shadow travel to the end of this. I'm in so much pain. And I was like, oh, one day I'm going to have a moment where Will and Nico are in a scene and they have to run, and Nico will shadow travel to the end and Will run the whole thing. I was like, I don't know where it's going to show up, but that's part of where that came from. Is I was like, oh, well, what if Frank goads Will into doing this whole training regimen? And Nico's like, peace. Oh, I'm so tired.
It was so great. It was giving gay kids walking the mile. Gay kids walking the mile.
Thank you.
It was so good.
Even though I hate to have to betray you all, I was the gay kid who ran the mile, because running is actually the only thing that I was good at.
Marathons.
But yeah. We don't have to talk about that anymore. Anyway, what is something that does not allow someone to see an aspect they should empathize with? Because I think all of us have that at some point in our lives. Something should be so obvious to us, and it isn't. So why don't we see it? And so with Frank, it's structure. Camp Jupiter provides him with a structure that helps him deal with chaos, with having ADHD, like, as well, like, thinking of it through that lens. And then it's like so obvious that he's like, well, no, the structure can't fall apart when it comes to monsters versus mythics, because then that makes this harder
for
and then
me to
him,
navigate the
yeah,
world.
exactly,
Yeah.
100%. And that doesn't make him a villain. It doesn't even make him an antagonist. It makes him slightly antagonistic at times, but he is not a villain in this at any point. It was also set where there wasn't a lot of sameness in the plot. If everyone was on the same page, like even in terms of the counselors, I don't think the book would have been as interesting. There needed to be someone who was like, hold on, why are we doing this again?
Yep.
Sometimes correctly, though. Frank, like, there were a few scenes where it's like, yeah, Frank, you're right. This is too much chaos. Like, we don't need tacos to shower down on the campers. That doesn't need to happen. Like, that's bad.
Frank, as far as this book being rooted in the real world, we were just like, wow, Frank is like the teenage boys we know, like so hardcore, the teenage boys we know. And we had this headcanon that like Perwithuis has a podcast, and like part of the reason why the Camp Jupiter kids are so like anti-mythic pilled is because Perwithuis has been like running a prejudice podcast, and Frank is like a big listener of this podcast.
And he doesn't even know it's Perwithuis. Like,
He doesn't know
Perwithuis. It's just like
name.
someone's asking these really interesting questions, and
like, maybe you guys should listen. And so the fantasy of him like turning that around was also, again, like so satisfying for us to read.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We felt like several different influences in the story. Carter, you want to mention one of your influences you felt?
I kept bringing up Pokemon when we were going through this book, specifically because of the constant presence of the Cocoa Puffs and some of the specific sight gags that happen with them, where they're like appearing and calling forth and sort of like
Cocoa Puffs to me.
Yeah.
Going into his body. We were wondering if you thought anything about this. There's also some like mecha elements, like at some point when it feels like they're like combining into like a single entity with Nico, it felt very
I mean, some of that might be just not a conscious thought. It just sort of seeps in because obviously I play Pokemon Go every single day of my life. Like, it's something I think about all the time, on top of have consumed a lot of anime, and I think most of it is more mecha than not. So that's the thing where an influence is sort of an unconscious thing, and I was thinking of it that way. The balance with the Cocoa Puffs that Rick and I, when we were having conversations, were this book needs to show that they are individuals, but also that they're kind of hive-minded in a way, in that they have an interesting connection to one another, and they can kind of unite, but that they're all still rooted, not just rooted in Nico, but they're kind of attached to him. So some of it is just purely for entertainment. I just love the idea that these little blobs are terrorizing the camp, and everyone's like, well, I guess we have to deal with these things. Oh, wow, I feel real sad. Oh, it's because there's a Cocoa Puff on my head. Like,
so funny. That scene when I said episode, but that scene when they're all in the van together and like crying and screaming and looking out the window. So good.
Yeah. By the way, a nightmare to write, because I remember we had to leave notes of which Cocoa Puff they left camp with to remember, so that, because then there's a point where they all move around, and so I will say logistical nightmare to write, but then brought about a lot of fun stuff. I wanted to make sure that there was also a moment, because they had gotten so far from Nico by the end of the book, to remind everyone that they came from Nico. And yes, they might be this new sort of creation in this new existence, but they are Nico's memories and Nico's emotions. And I didn't want to get so far away that it felt like he had actually cast out these emotions. No. And so him getting the Cocoa Puffs knocked out of him, so funny. But also, God, just a moment of like, wow, that's I'm trying to think if there was another influence here. It honestly might be what you think of, but it just was an unconscious thing that I did. But
I think Carter
I don't know.
specifically, you talked about like when all the mythics were in the dodecahedron, just kind of like peacefully milling about, that it felt like a Pokemon or maybe like Animal Crossing.
The most
that was
recent
the
Pokemon game is
came to
structured
mind.
exactly like that, where there's just like a
Oh, which
cell
I
in the
haven't
middle of a
played.
city.
Yeah. Yes, I also so much of that was interesting to write too, because the vibe we wanted to give was, we know we're all on the same side, but it is awkward as hell in here. And so instead of like, and then slowly building the tension, but the idea was like, oh, should they be fighting each other at first? I was like, no, because they all know. They've gone through court and now they know what's on the other side of it. So every person, anyone who comes through, they're like, oh, you've been through this too. Okay, you were judged unfairly. We're all on the same team. And so there's a vibe in there of like, well, maybe we aren't going to hang out and be best friends with each other, but we are in this together. We're going to figure it out. Then, of course, Hazel shows up and they're all like, I'm sorry, what? Like, and then there's almost that reversal of like, well, why are you here? What's going on with this? So yeah, that was also oh my god, what's it called? It's a little bit of Under the Dome, Stephen King. That's my favorite. That's my favorite of the modern Stephen King books. And this idea of someone or something trapping everyone in an inescapable see-through cage. Yeah, so it's a little bit of that. Yeah.
Aside from
and just creating that.
Yeah. Aside from the obvious like dodecahedron of it all, I felt so much D&D influence in this book. Like just the structure of the way, and okay, I know that like if you're somebody who plays D&D, like it influences the way you think about story. Like no matter what, it just changes. So like, but I like particularly in how we were like, let's like we're gonna solve these problems. Like, does everybody have what they need before we leave camp? Because we're going out on this quest to downtown San Francisco, and like, and then from here, like, where are we gonna go? I felt like I was like in a multiplayer like party campaign, and I wanted to just hear you.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
because I didn't start playing D&D until like September or August of this year. I'd played it once, so no, that is, and I don't think Rick played. Well, he might play. I don't know. I'll have to ask him next time I see him. So no. However, I think where that might be the similarity that it was coming from is a very funny aspect of how I play video games, which is I always stock up before I go out for a mission. And I had this idea of like, yeah, that's funny, that especially there was actually an in-universe reason, which is that Nico and Will are hyper aware of the fact that they are Camp Jupiter, not Camp Half-Blood.
Yeah.
And Camp Jupiter is more militaristic. They do have a different sense of how they do it. So a lot of it is like Nico and Will, like, we're not going to step on toes here. This is your thing. Let's make sure we're all on the same page, and also make sure we're always consulting Hazel and Frank. This is something we're doing together. I think if Nico and Will this had all happened around Camp Half-Blood, they would have been like, grab this, let's go, bye, let's just go, we'll figure it out. I mean, hold on, let me not disrespect Will. Would stuff his cargo pants or cargo shorts
they're already
full
stuffed.
of supplies.
Yeah, he's walking around like fully stuffed with cookies and Kit Kats.
Yeah, 100%. But it was a slight change in how Nico and Will think about doing this, because they're slightly out of their element here. And as well as because they're working with their Roman counterparts who just think of the world differently. So that part was very intentional. I think it just manifested in how I play video games, which is I need to have everything perfectly prepared. I'm going to have one weapon for every possible scenario. Here's my fire weapon. Here's my shock weapon. Here's this thing. Here's my health potion. I have everything I'm ever going to need. Do I hoard supplies in video games? Yes, I do. Do I currently hoard everything in Pokemon Go? Yes, I do. Do I need 300 potions to heal my Pokemon? No. Why do I have it? Because you never know.
You never
know.
Oh, so you're Will.
Never know. Oh, I am Will. Oh, the cargo pants of my telephone are stuffed to the gills with everything I might ever need.
Carter, do you want to ask about Naomi?
Yeah, we basically were curious. Like,
was
there a specific musical influence that you had in mind? We were trying to like envision what she sounds like, or like what type of career she has as a successful touring musician.
So, in my head, I will say this. First of all, this is a real life trope I love, which is when you get to know someone deeply, intimately, they're your best friend, or maybe they're your romantic partner, whatever it is, and then you meet one of their parents and you're like, oh,
Oh.
now you make sense. And so it was very much that vibe of how do I make Will make more sense? And so that's, at least from the outline, that's what I described as the vibe of like Naomi is like Will personified to a degree you can't even begin to fathom. We have to have someone who's cheerier than Will, who is way more social than Will. Like when you look at it, you will think that Will is an introvert. Like that was, so I didn't have examples in the outline. It was like, here is the vibe of Naomi. Now we understand why she is this touring musician, why she is still able to have and this is stuff that didn't necessarily make it into the text, but it's like important for us to inform it of how is she able to have a modern music career? She has to be compelling and engaging on some level, and that she's still touring. So in my head, she's like a country indie, a little bit Cat Power, a little bit Florence Welch, a little bit Robin. And so I'm thinking like she's
I definitely
slightly
feel
alternative,
Robin.
a slightly alternative. Like she might be singing like country style music, but there's an alternative edge to it. She is someone who is always going to be seen literally not as mom, but like I wanted her to be someone who like would have young fans who call her mother. Like that. And so like you saying mother, I'm like, yeah, that's the vibe of it. And also this idea that she is a woman in an industry that is full of men. And how is she able to
Oh, you think I've never been on a tour? Frank, please.
Yeah, please. Yeah, come on. Oh, please don't write a song about this. And she's like, girl, I will do whatever I want. Don't listen to me.
Oh my God, Frank,
But
shut
that
up.
idea that she's also had to like carve her mark in this world forcefully sometimes. And so she is just unapologetically herself. And so using that as an anchor is how Rick and I then decided how she would interact. So I think one of the ways that manifested in my first draft was the moment she walks into Camp Jupiter and her deciding she's going to say hi to every single one and everything. And like, she's going to introduce herself. I'm like, oh, that's how she does it or whatnot. Her writing the song in the van, that's Rick. That was Rick's. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course she's going to pull inspiration from the very moment. And she's going to find a way to talk about it in a way that is going to be compelling and interesting to people in the human world, but she's actually talking about all of this. And then also, I want to say it was my idea to have her be one of the rare humans who can see through the mist.
Yeah.
But I know Rick expanded on how much of that was a part of who she is. But I think that also came from the fact that she was technically present in The Sun and the Star in Will's flashback with the Symphalian birds, is she has seen it. And so it's we have a character like that in Sally Jackson. So how do we do that again, but different? It has to be different. And so, yeah, that's sort of the anchor of where we were coming from with Naomi.
Yeah.
Is Will needed to make more sense. We needed this sense that Naomi has a very full, satisfying creative life outside of her son. But also the second she's around her son, she becomes herself in a way that's unstoppable. And there's that joy. And you can see that Will has been loved unconditionally his entire life. And I just loved getting to put that on the page. And I love that she is there and she has an effect on the story as much as she does. I didn't want her to just show up and she's there to be there. Like, yeah.
Carter's disappearing for 30 seconds.
Yeah, I thought.
Speaking of music, we talked a lot about Paramore last time. So now, and we talked about Lost Hope, and now I'm curious if there is like a particular Nico Di Angelo Paramore song or a song from this book, or I know you have elaborate, very specific playlists when you write.
I do. So this would have been 2024. I'm also thinking because a lot of what influences me is just what's out around that time. I mean, I can actually, you know what? What are we doing? I have a record
Pull
of
it up.
I do have a record of this.
I was also going through our Nico Di Angelo playlist and being like, which one of these songs like really fits like this particular book? I was thinking Hello Cold World off of the singles is a really good one.
Yeah. I was also, hold on, let me sign into this. So I have to sign in. with my password.
I'm not angry anymore. Grow up because he's old now, elderly demigod.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this would have been. Let's look. It was last year, so I drafted most of this in April. Yeah, a lot of Cowboy Carter. I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh yeah. A
Specifically
lot
referenced
of
in this
Cowboy
book.
Carter.
Texas Hold'em, am I right?
Yeah, that's Rick's contribution.
Oh, we
Even
were for
he
sure
didn't
that was
know.
Rick.
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of that. Oh, that's so fascinating. Wait, hold on. Let me check. Oh wait, last year. May. There we go. It was in April, May of 2024 where the bulk of this was written. Oh, there is this incredible artist named Amber Mark, who I'm super obsessed with. I listen to a lot of her. This R&B artist named Sir. So in particular, which he writes a lot of like very complicated sort of love and romance songs that really kind of hit the spot for me. Um, uh, oh wow, wow! I listened to a lot of chaotic stuff during the writing of this. Um, a lot of how many songs did I listen to? 1,979.
On your playlist?
No, this is just I have a thing that keeps track of what I'm actually listening to. Oh, Jiraiya! The Jiraiya album came out in early May. He is like a chaotic emo circus music is the only way I know how to describe it. Which is the end of the book. Like it's literally the end of the book. So a lot of the end of the book was influenced by the chaos of that. Oh wow. Yeah, a whole bunch of that made its way in there. I would also say in terms of like being very, very specific about what we were cultivating here was oh my god, what is the name of that artist? Oh, I'm blanking on it right now. I can't speak to what I know Rick was listening to because we do talk about music quite occasionally. Um, I know he was listening to a lot of Cowboy Carter, a lot Taylor Swift. I know he was listening to.
Oh yeah, this is about when they went to the Eras tour.
Yeah. So I know that affected part of his listening. I will say a song that I keep returning to as well is "Cosmic Love" by Florence and the Machine.
God.
Because I think even Will and Nico's relationship is so different in this book, and like trying to think about it, especially as Will has to sort of readjust what it means to support his partner, is very, very different than what happens in Sun and the Star. And I also think an important part of this relationship is just Nico's relation to himself, and through his therapy sessions with Mr. D, as well as like honestly, probably my favorite scene I wrote in the book is when he goes to the shrine for his father.
Mm-hmm.
And like him
Wow,
just having a moment of saying like, yeah, let me ask for help. Let me just do something I just don't do. I'm going to ask for help. I want to also call out a really interesting thing too. Someone pointed out that I was really glad that they noticed is that in that scene, Hades repairs the iconic jacket as like a gift for his son. But there's something he doesn't repair that lasts the whole book that I was very intentional about. And like, we had a very brief conversation about we don't want to do this too, was he doesn't heal Nico's scars on his face that he got from Son of the Star. And that was very deliberate too, because I had a younger fan at a school visit ask me why Nico didn't ask to have his face healed. And I was like, well, there's a very little reason, which is that signs of disfigurement, signs of scar, like are usually viewed as negative attributes in the world. And so having Nico's face literally be different in some way, but him still being a good character is like a very intentional thing that we're doing. But also I see Nico almost seeing them as a badge of pride. It's a part of who he is now. He's not going to change that. But Hades does correctly understand that this offering, I just loved getting to write that and have an unspoken moment where Hades says, "What you have offered me, I understand how huge this is. Here is my gift back to you." And having that be maybe the healthiest reaction Nico and Hades have ever had in the series. And I think it needed to happen where it happened, when Nico feels particularly lost. Not just lost, but again, a lot of this book is dealing with grief and dealing with like, and guilt. Did I make the wrong choice? Hazel has spent so much of the book being like, have I been making the wrong choice my whole life? And now here is Nico trying to deal with Savannah as well as the mystery of Hazel. And he's like, did I make the wrong choice? Do I deserve to be judged for what I've done? And having this moment that is quiet and unstated, but is Hades' way of saying, no, you're doing exactly the right thing. And look, not all the parentage relationships are going to be great, but I'm glad that this one was.
Yeah, and it makes sense too, because they do have, out of all of the like parent demigod child relationships in this whole series, they have spent the most time together.
Yeah,
again, it
literally
makes sense that they would have the closest, best relationship. Speaking of, this is okay. Last big question. The last time that you were here, the TV show had not even come out yet.
I know.
Which is nuts. So I guess in general, like, what was it like watching season 1? But also, have you spoken at all to Levi, who is our new
Nobody
Nico?
followed me on Instagram. He followed me on Instagram before, like right after the announcement. So I don't think I'd seen the announcement, but I saw this person follow me and I was like, who's Levi? And they had like a check mark and I was like, oh, okay, I'll go see who they are. And that's how I found out. I think then I went to Twitter and freaked out and saw that he was announced. So he follows me, so he knows I exist. Mm-hmm. I don't even know how to deal with that. Like,
isn't it so weird?
It's very weird.
I found out after that announcement was made at San Diego Comic-Con, and Carter and I were like, oh my God. And we were like posting about it. And then I noticed that Levi already followed me on Instagram and like my personal account. And I realized that we had met.
What does he know?
We had met last October. So like over a year ago, we met at my workplace because he was in a touring production of Peter Pan and I was touring with Wicked. And I distinctly remember, I was like, oh my God, the little kid in the green suit. He I think called out of the show that night to come and see Wicked because we were nearby in Oregon.
Shut up.
And he was in an all green 3-piece suit and he waited at the stage door. I was giving like the Broadway Cares tour that night, so I was late coming out to the stage door. And I met him and we like spoke and we took a picture together. And I was like, oh my God, you mean to say that like this kid who is playing like my greatest comfort character in life and I like had this weird.
How to deal with that?
Isn't that nuts?
I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to deal with that. As you know, I have been spending most of this year working on my next YA novel. And my goal was I couldn't watch season 1 until I finished the draft of my next YA book. So I did finish it. So I got to watch the season right after the Court of the Dead tour. Which I'd wanted to watch it before so I could just ask Rick questions every single day. But this time around, I was like, last time when I was on tour for Sun and the Star, I was drafting Jasmine is Haunted. So I actually had very little downtime. And this time around, not having to write on tour meant I actually got to be social this time around and like hang out with everyone instead of being like, oh, okay, we had dinner. Bye. I got to go back to my hotel room and be antisocial, whatever. So I did not watch the show until afterwards. My prevailing thought watching season 1 is this is so surreal that this is happening. I think something that I still, despite how chaotic and huge and overwhelming and overstimulating the Court of the Dead tour was, in my head, there's like 10 of us who like Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and it's not true. It is literally not true. I have numbers to prove that it's not true. It is a huge cultural force of a series, but in my head, it's still this tiny little series that only a few of us know about. And so watching it unfold on television and then them get so many things right that I was just like, how is this happening? It reminded me of the experience of watching the HBO miniseries for His Dark Materials. Because that, to me, that's like the gold standard of like adaptations. They did such justice to those books. I cannot recommend that adaptation so much enough.
They both have Lin-Manuel Miranda.
They do have. You're right. They do. Oh my God.
Connective tissue.
And now, isn't Daphne Isn't Daphne in the new? Am I thinking wrong? Is
Oh,
Daphne been
Daphne
cast?
Keane?
Daphne Keane?
Yeah,
No, she's not.
she's playing
She
Artemis.
was. Yes. Well, she's Lyra in His Dark Materials. So yeah,
Lin-Manuel
now they
Miranda
have.
and Daphne Keane. Yes,
Yeah.
the most
Yeah.
important key ingredient.
So yeah, uh the other thought I had is, where did they find the trio? And I know that all three of them have acted before in some capacity. Or has Leah acted before? Is
Oh
this her?
yeah, since she was like 2 years
Okay, yeah,
old
yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
That's what I thought. But watching their chemistry and there were moments where I'm just like, it it feels like this incredible synergy that the three of them are alive at the same time or around that age, and that they all got to be these three iconic characters. And it was more than anything else. I was like, the show is gonna, adapt these books as best as they can. Things are gonna change, but that was the part that I think for me was the most important. Of like, you have to get Grover, Annabeth, and Percy right, and just watching the three of them, and I just was awestruck at their ability to be these characters, to make them their own. The three of them are so just ungodly talented, and so for me, it's like, I don't know. As someone who's a fan of fiction, and like I tend to be someone who's just a fan of books, like, and it's rare that I'm like, oh, I need the visual adaptation of it or whatnot. And I do have my
Fair.
exceptions for that, like His Dark Material. It's like, for me, as long as I have that, that's good. And then the visual adaptation is just a bonus on top of it. But then there's things like the Hunger Games series, His Dark Materials, where I'm like, oh, holy, you really added to this in ways that are just really incredible. I think for me, I just cannot stop thinking about those three. And it's what I'm most excited for next month, is to get to experience that again with the three of them. And also just see what the changes are. Getting to hang around. Yes, I have seen stuff none of you have seen. It's very exciting. I'm very excited about that. I've also seen some season 3 stuff that,
Ooh.
Lord, I'm very excited. I'm very excited.
We're also
Okay.
very excited for season 3. Okay, well, thank you so much, Mark. If
Yeah,
you
of
want
course.
to drop any mysterious tidbits about the potential season 3 book that is
Wait,
not
did we do
technically
the
happening,
rapid fire questions?
those were kind of our rapid fire.
Okay, good. I don't know how to rapid fire answer anything. All right,
Neither do we.
that's fine. Perfect.
Do you want to drop any mysterious tidbits
Yeah.
about a
Okay.
potential third
I can
book?
say, Rick and I talked about a third book this year. The thought was, first of all, this is so fun. We work so well together. But just like with Court of the Dead, it's not going to happen unless there's a compelling idea. We are not interested in doing things just to do them. And I think that, by the way, that has been a really, really satisfying thing to see behind the scenes, that I'm okay sharing with, is that Rick really has to have a good idea, or he's not going to do it. It's just not, he's not there to create content for the sake of it. And he is certainly not going to devote enough time to a book unless the idea is compelling. Um, I promise you, this is not me gaslighting both the two of you and everyone listening to this. I have
believe
to
you.
finish editing We Won't Be Here When It Ends. I have to then immediately write my next YA, which is mostly done. I think I need about another month to finish it, because I'm doing 2 back-to-back YAs, which is kind of exciting. I've never done that before. And so, and then I have to write a middle grade book, and all of that has to be done next year, which is a lot of writing.
Wow.
Rick has
Yeah.
to finish season 3. So for the moment, like, when we had a conversation on Tora that was like, let's just check back in 2026. So there's no way any book is going to come out next year at all. And we are most likely not going to reconvene again until sometime in 2026 to have a conversation about it, because also we need a little time off. The Go to the Dead tour was so intense. I mean, it was a lot. It was
Big.
great. It was big. It was very overwhelming. And so, that being said, I pitched him an idea. It is pulling a thread that is in Court of the Dead. It is, I know the things we have talked about is, It's still a Nico book, but it will have a
Lots of will.
huge, lots of will.
Yep.
We know how we're going to pull that thread in particular. It is going to go somewhere we have not seen in a very long time. It is also going to be a theme that's never happened, I think, in the books. Basically, I think I said this earlier. The joy of getting to write the Nico books is because all of us Nico fans are not well, and it's great. we are, you know what I mean. But like there is a creative freedom in that we could experiment with Sun and the Star, and then, like as you two brought up, they even structurally say we're going to do something, no quest, diverging plot lines. We're going to have a story not feel like the others. So for this third one, I want to shoot for the stars.
Is it Kyron Leaves and Nico Will are the activities directors of Camp Half-Blood?
I can't tell you
what
it's going to be, first of all.
Read your face. I'm going to look at your face while we throw ideas at you and see when you twitch.
No, that's not happening. No, I have developed like a stone exterior.
Yeah, you have a good poker face.
Yeah, I will say there is one, I hope I run into them again. There is one person, this young girl who I want to say I met at YALLFest 2 years ago, or maybe I met her at another festival, who got her book signed, and I want you to know, guessed the plot of The Court of the Dead. It was just like, it'd be really cool. I would love to see someone like the Minotaur again. And like, what if they show up and they're at Camp Jupiter and
the Oracle.
I was like,
she's the Oracle.
Yeah, no, they are you know that meme that's like the gift of prophecy and it's the dodgeball and then it's a random internet user? They did that. They are the only person in the 2 years from Sun and the Star came out to The Court of the Dead who correctly guessed what the book is about. And I think about them all the time.
Oh,
I don't know where you are. I hope you listen to this. You nearly shattered me because I had moments where I was like, did I leak it? Did you see on my laptop?
Oh, no.
How did you know about this? Because otherwise, by the way, I generally, especially now of where I am with Percy Jackson and how I contribute to this series, I do deeply want to respect that I am a contributor, an author of this series, so I stay out of fan spaces, that it's not where I belong.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, when Court of the Dead was announced, I read every single theory and everyone was so wrong about what the book was about. It was so great. Incredible. And I was like, except for, you guys knew. Y'all knew. So yes, we want to do a third book. There is no plans for it. I have not signed a contract. But I have pitched an idea. I think it's very compelling. It is something that hasn't happened that I think needs to happen and is going to be an experiment as well, because I think this is where both of us get to try something new. So yeah, but we both have a lot to do first before we get back to it.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark, so much for coming on for round 2 and giving us so much of your time. We know you're so busy. Everybody, please
I'm
check
never
out-
too busy for y'all. Like I will also say and echo what I have said before. It is very rare as creators that we get to do deep dives into what is our authorial intent, what was our thinking, how did we come up with this and whatnot. And I think even as someone who does a lot of school visits, sometimes they're so non-spoilery that I don't get to do this part. And this part is so satisfying and so much fun to do. So thank you to both of you for like making a space where we can be geeky and get into the nitty-gritty and the details, and I just really, really appreciate it. So again, I'll never be too busy for y'all at all, ever.
Thank you. Everybody, check out Mark's website for all of their amazing books. Follow Mark Does Stuff on all of the platforms. This is our official final Court of the Dead episode, and it is all Percy Jackson TV Season 2 from here on out. So stick with us. Thank you all. Thank you, Mark. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.